Transit, the TV show On Transit that takes place on transit.
This episode of On Transit visits a transportation funding rally at the state capitol on April 6, 2005. There's that and much more on this episode of On Transit.
Well, right now we're gathering here at the state capitol in preparation for the transportation rally. We're going to be rallying for transportation funding, not just roads and bridges, but also mass transit with rail transit such as North Star and the Red Rock line, as well as to halt the cuts in Metro Transit with their upcoming budget cuts that are proposed for this summer.
I'm Sasha Peterson. I'm the program manager with Transit for Livable Communities, and a lot of our members are here today along with a lot of other supporters who are transit riders and who are commuters, and we're just very concerned about the need for long-term stable transit funding, and we're very concerned about the cuts, but the cuts are just a symptom of the fact that we need a long-term stable solution so that we can start building a transit system that will serve us now into the future. And Transit for Livable Communities has a bill that's going to be heard in the Senate tomorrow, April 7th, and that bill would fully fund transit as well as provide some money for bicycling and walking. So the reason that we're here today is to make sure that lawmakers understand that not only can we not go backwards, but we need to start funding transit so that we can really build a system that will provide the choices that commuters want.
My name is Dan Stone. I'm here today because I'm dependent on transit. I take the bus and the train, and I could afford a car, but I don't really want to, especially with gas prices and insurance the way that they are.
My name is Karen Street, and I'm here because I'm with Transit for Livable Communities. I was there at the opening of the Hiawatha line, and that was really exciting. And as we can see on these maps that we've got here, these lovely maps, that the Transit for Livable Communities is really trying to get the word out that we really need to update our transit system to serve the Twin Cities, and we need to join the 21st century in public transportation. We're the largest city without a really, really good transportation system. Boston has a great transportation system. Chicago has a great transportation system. Atlanta. We need to learn from these other communities that a public transportation system is a possibility. I know there's people out there that think that we should just buy cars for the poor and make our traffic congestions even worse. So, I think it's really important to have dedicated funds for transportation. It's really, really needed in this community.
We visited Toronto and Montreal, and their transportation systems were just put together so well. You had buses, trains, trams. They all worked in unison, in conjunction. You could get anywhere. You could get there quickly. I'm tired of transit not being thought of as an essential part of our society. I mean, why don't we, with this current administration, why don't we make firemen and policemen for-profit organizations? If they want to do that with the bus, people have to travel. Let's make everything. Let's go completely laissez-faire capitalist if you're going to do that. I just think it's ridiculous.
I just don't like to see them regressing. Transportation, as gas is more expensive, buses and transit can be a much better option for more people, because it is just getting so expensive, and it's the wave of the future, we think. The rail and heavy rail, light rail, those corridors and buses are a good way to go, and they sure take a lot of vehicles off the roads.
I am concerned about these cutbacks. It doesn't make sense in this age when we have limited fossil fuels.
Buses are a very good transportation for the money. For what you invest in buses, you move a lot of people with just one vehicle. It's some of the best money you could spend, and to see them cut back on the buses and raising fares will drop ridership and actually increase congestion.
And while we may have different opinions on policy specifics, As long as we keep focused on our common vision and our goals, I'm confident we'll reach an agreement and pass a significant package this year. I guarantee the governor and I will work and fight to the end, to the very end of the session, to achieve what's best for transportation, therefore what's best for Minnesota.
We have to stop doing things piecemeal. The time has come to think big, to solve the problem right. The time has come to make a major new investment in our transportation system, both roads and transit, and use the resources as effectively as possible to ensure our future competitiveness and the quality of life.
You finally are starting to wake government up to the fact that there's a great need for congestion relief, for rebuilding the roads in rural Minnesota and a transit system. And you're going to need more rallies like this to do it, because they've been sleeping too long to the idea of what we need. In 2005, there are at least 6 or 7 proposals, maybe there'll be more. My hope is that we won't implode, that every batch of legislators is going to pick the plan that they're going to support, but that we put something together that everybody can vote for. And that is going to have to be a balanced plan as far as I'm concerned. And it should include money now, which means a gas tax increase among the pieces. Get it done! Get it done! There's one problem. There's an 800-pound gorilla sitting in the road, and that's this no new tax pledge stuff. Well, I don't know what we can do about that because it's sitting there, but we're going to have to try and do something. So I would suggest, and I might even remind you, that governors have been overridden in vetoes in prior years. But for starters, get out there and talk to your legislators and get them to vote for a good, solid plan. And thank you.
You know, if I've ever seen a group that could tip over an 800-pound gorilla, this is the group. This is the group. So this is the year to do it, folks. We need to invest in Minnesota's future. They said we couldn't get a light rail transit line built in this state. Now they've got a bonding bill that's got investment in 5 new corridors. We need to complement that investment in transit with transit operating money for this year and the years to come, Transit Now.
But you would think that in listening to previous speakers that nothing has been done for roads or bridges or transit in the state of Minnesota. That's absolutely far from the truth. Under Governor Peleni's leadership 2 years ago, we had the most major investment for the city. You do good work for the people of the state of Minnesota. If in fact the words that I heard from citizens were get the job done over the past year, one of the things that they ask us to do is to work together, executive, legislative, House, Senate, Democrat, Republican, to move forward the ball in the state as far as the best interest.
It was great to see such a crowd. There were a lot of hard hats and yellow vests, as you know, and a lot of construction workers, which is great to see. I wanted to see even more emphasis put on good transit funding, good transit support than I did. But it's still heartening to see the support I did see for that.
I didn't hear a lot of transit-specific things being mentioned. I think that a lot of the politicians were sort of using their politician speak and, you know, sort of skirting the issue. I heard transportation and roads and bridges a lot more than I heard transit, though I did hear it from a few different people.
I don't want to stand up here and yell at you. I want you to yell at us. I want you to tell us to get the job done. We have been... Thank you. Let's hear it. Let's hear it. Get it done. And tomorrow in the Senate Transportation Committee, we are going to be addressing specifically the transit plan, the 2020 transit plan. There are $360 million in outstanding needs for mass transit. We need transit and we need it now. And I want to hear it from you. Thank you. Tomorrow we're going to be marking up that bill in the Senate Transportation Committee, and we're going to send that over to the House, and we're going to hope that we can get some matching action from the House, that we need transit money in addition to roads. I have been someone who has been working on roads most of my professional life as a legislator, and spent the last 20 years of my life trying to get road money for a specific project in my district, namely the 494 Wakota Bridge Trunk Highway 61 project. And guess what? The largest concrete pour in state history is rising out of the ground right now. That's great, but that's just part of the job. We've got to get the whole job done. We've got to get all of the mass transit needs and the highway needs around this state funded, and funded now, and I want to thank you for your support.
We've talked a lot this year about how this is the year we're going to do it. Voices are being raised. Everyone wants to kick this logjam loose that we've been dealing with for the last 20 years. And at the start of this session, we had a lot of hope and there was a lot of momentum, but I'm telling you right now, I'm worried. And we need your voices right now. Right now is key. There are a lot of plans on the table, but I'm telling you, not all plans are created equal.
I will be speaking for Transportation for Livable Communities. I'll be talking about the Metro Transit bus cuts and how they're affecting everybody in the region, whether they're actually riding the bus or they're not riding the bus, and how those people that are on the bus now, if they're on the roads, then the gridlock will be just that much worse.
I'm one of the over 5,000 members of Transit for Livable Communities. I'm also a student at the University of Minnesota and a transportation engineer. As a student, we all try to save money. We're broke. The U's been raising tuition through the roof. What we do to save money, we ride transit. What's happening right now? Transit's being cut. Metro Transit is looking at a big budget cut for the next, this summer. My two main routes are being cut. One's being eliminated, and the route that Metro Transit suggests to take as the alternative, that's being cut back by over 25%. So, and as a transportation engineer at the university, and I've also worked on the Hiawatha line and for municipal projects, I can see what's happening. The funding is no longer there. Our roads are failing. Our transit is failing. The status quo just does not work anymore. We need to tell our legislators to take public transit off its starvation diet and take it off that now. Transit is crucial to everybody, if you live in the metro or if you live outstate. In the metro here, we've got a really diverse community base. What ties it all together? Buses tie it all together. The train ties it all together. People rely on transit. It takes cars off of the road. It gives people options. How many people out there enjoy sitting in their car on the way home from work every day? Yeah, that's a resounding cry. I don't either. I can ride the bus, I can get my homework done, I can read on the bus, I can do work on the bus. It's that much easier, it's an easy option. And I'm not at the gas station every day filling up my tank with $2 and whatever it is today's gas. And public wants convenient transportation. They want convenient mass transit and they want it now. Look at light rail, look how popular that's been. And people have been riding that like crazy. The numbers come out every month and they're above what is expected every single time. How many people out there have ridden it to, say, Vikings games, Twins games, Gopher games downtown? I know I have, and it's really comfortable. You look at the people sitting on 55, you just wave as you go on by. That's what we need more of. We need more buses. We need more light rail. We need more commuter rail. We need North Star rail.
But I'm encouraged. I mean, it's a start. It was good to see this many people out here to support. Just the sheer number, and a lot of them seem to be pro-transit.
Right now we're seeing all these yellow and orange vests because the transportation unions and engineers are all showing up in support of these bills. Basically, this is our livelihood, and we also believe in what we're working in. We know that gridlock is just going to get worse, and with all these people behind us here, we'd all like to see transportation funding be improved in the next session here.
Our members are very excited about the idea of having a real vision for where our region needs to go in terms of transit. We've been putting out a transit ways map that our members have been using to contact legislators, to contact their lawmakers, and to say that we really want full funding for transit. Folks have been attending the rally today. There'll be a lot of folks that will be attending the hearing tomorrow. There are also Met Council hearings that are coming up about the transit cuts, and a lot of our members will be attending that. But I would, unfortunately, the fact that the bus system could be cut 1 in 5 bus routes are going to be eliminated, and another 50% of bus routes could be reduced. That's a really good motivator, unfortunately, for our members to really turn out and talk about how they would be affected by that.
I'm Cecile Clodier and I work at Metro Transit, but I've also been a bus rider. I don't drive. I have panic attacks, so I don't drive. So the bus is really, really important to me, not only as a transit employee, but also as a rider. I was on strike for 6 weeks last year as an ATU employee. I did a weblog for City Pages, and I write for them, and I'm here taking pictures for them today. And it's just really important that transit get dedicated funding so that we are not at the legislature every year with our hat in hand, dependent on the whims of people that may or may not like us. As my dad said, he's certainly not what you would call, liberal, socialist, left, or whatever. He's an old school conservative. He says transit should be funded the way water or power is, utilities. It should be a utility. It shouldn't be negotiable, and it shouldn't be at the whim of the legislature.
Serious cuts could affect us very, very detrimentally. I mean, we might even leave the Twin Cities if it comes down to it.
I use the bus to go grocery shopping, to go to ball games, to get to my friends' houses during the winter when I'm not riding my bike, or when it's too cold out. I use it to get to work and get home from work. It's pretty integral to my lifestyle, actually, because I don't have a car. I ride my bike when the weather's nice, but I'm not one of those hardcore people that does it all year long. So it's an important thing to me, and I really kind of depend on it for my lifestyle.
I'm Scott Bowl. I live in Washington County, and I drive for HSI, transporters, helping folks get around that have disabilities. Yes, I drive in the Cottage Grove area. And I know I'm picking up folks that are elderly or at senior centers, and their family has asked them no longer to drive. And so they need to get around. They need the buses. And so I'm able to drive them around, and we have some good times singing on the way, and that's all fine, but they need the transportation.
Well, I wanted to be there to show my support for people that ride the bus and the train, and people that are doing the right thing and supporting transit. And I wanted to show the legislators who would show up that transit's just as important as roads. I want them to see the big picture.
I'm a student right now at the University of Minnesota. I'm a full-time student, and I take the express bus from Maplewood Mall, and I would take it more often if it were offered more often. I think there needs to be a wider variety of times that I can go and times that I can come back. And I'm sure that my route's going to be actually cut down from what I'm hearing. So, and I think a half-cent sales tax on, is a really fair way of funding transportation, funding roads, funding, it costs a lot of money to take care of roads in Minnesota. It's more costly than a lot of other communities because of the snow and ice and that sort of thing. We need sand, we need salt, we need plows, all that sort of thing. It costs money.
Well, not only because I'm a driver and that's how I'm making my living is driving the buses, but also just the fact that we have a limited natural resources now. People are clear that with the rising fuel costs that we have limited fossil fuels, and we have to look at preserving mass transit. I'm very concerned that Peter Bell, I heard on the radio, I heard him on Almanac, and he was saying that there is funding for the mass transit in 2008, but there's no funding right now, and so we have to figure out some funding source, whether it be a 0.5% sales tax or what. This 2020 bill sounds excellent.
What it boils down to is if you ride the bus, you know somebody who rides the bus, you use the roads, you walk, you ride a bike, you need to talk to your legislator now.
Call the people that are representing you and tell them to support better transportation and transit funding.
You need to go back into that marble building. You need to talk to those legislators, talk to the governor, and get it done in 2005. I want to work you, push it hard. This is the year to do it. Knock over that 800-pound gorilla and move Minnesota forward. That's what this is about. So are we going to do it this year? Yeah. All right, thank you.
public transit, on public access, and that's On Transit.
I ride the Route 270 from my home in Matamidi all the way to Minneapolis every day. I use the bus on weekends, especially on Grand Avenue in St. Paul, which is just made for a good bus service. And I'm concerned right now because Metro Transit's plan to cut about 12% of the system, or roughly, includes taking away all the service past Maplewood Mall, so I'd have to drive my car to the mall from now on if that happened, or I'd use the Dial-A-Ride. So I'd much rather keep some of my regular bus service right out there. It's relaxing. I can doze off while riding the bus, and I've seen people try that driving, but it's not recommended. It's much less stressful to ride the bus or train than it is to drive alone. I hate it when I have to drive. Those days I do. Also, it saves money. I'm probably saving easily $1,000 a year out of pocket expenses because I ride. And of course, I'm cutting down on global warming. I'm reducing our deficit of trade imbalance. I'm not buying so much gasoline and oil. It's better for the country. Patriots ride transit. I think people are finally coming together from different fields and walks of life and understanding that this is really a big issue in this state. You have to really know your system and know your schedule when you're out there, unless you go to a park and ride lot, which has service maybe every 10 minutes or better, and then people kind of run up at the last minute because they don't look at the schedule. But it's a good idea. You need to plan a little anyway. We have, I think, good service to our suburbs in many cases here, service that's threatened if we don't get better funding. But we have, I live about 24 miles from my office. I get there within about an hour and 10 minutes. My average speed is around 20 miles an hour. I can drive it a little faster, but again, it's a much more relaxing and comfortable way to ride to work. I think a suburbanite wants to think more about, in this town especially, wants to think more about their options in the future, because driving is getting more stressful, and we need to think more carefully about developing our suburbs so they have some of the best attributes of the city. Are more walkable, more bikeable, easier to ride the bus in, and then you'll have more people riding the bus and even trains eventually in the suburbs too. I love it, and there must be a lot of people that do too, because a recent survey done on the Hiawatha line said that was it over 33% or 40% almost of the new riders on the 55 line had never ridden transit around here before. So it's very attractive. You get the reliability, smooth ride, and quiet. One thing about a good electric transit system is the quiet. A bus never can be quite as quiet, at least a conventional bus like the one we're in now. There are people who park their car out at 28th Avenue Park Ride on the Hiawatha line that live in the middle of Bloomington, where they're closer to an express bus. So it must be so attractive that people will actually get up earlier to ride it. One of the good things about riding a bus or train with other human beings and other creatures is it's a social experience. It's being together, you know. Driving alone in a car is an antisocial behavior because you're by yourself. You're not in a society immediately. It's better for a community if people see each other regularly in a kind way, and they're going to care more about their neighborhood. They're going to care more about their life and the life of others. I have visited Denver, which has a very vibrant downtown, and I would really credit that to having a very strong transit system and business community that really takes public transportation seriously. Denver is a fun town to eat out. It's a good eat-out town and a good nightlife town in downtown. And the Twin Cities are slowly catching up, but they've really have a very vibrant city. Dallas, Texas is another place I've been, which is very pro-auto in its history, but is a remarkably good transit system. I say that because the city hasn't been built around transit. as well as ours has been. They have a very strong commitment to having good public transportation, and they really, you just get around easily. Here on a Sunday, a lot of the lines run once an hour. It takes a lot of planning, you know. Dallas pretty much has a policy, because of good funding, they have a pretty much a policy that on a Sunday or nights, everything runs every 30 minutes or more frequent. You don't have to plan so much in Dallas. So that's a real strong impression you get when you ride around in those places. It's a group of volunteers, of people from all walks of life who understand that you cannot have a livable, safe city where you feel like a human being, any size, if everyone's just going to drive everywhere. Driving in an urban place tends to be antisocial. Now, driving has its place. I'm not anti-car. I'm just looking at the big picture. Transit for Livable Communities is made up of people like that who really see the big picture. They understand that it's not just riding the bus either. It's walking safely and comfortably, which is good for you. Bicycling, all the same. It's an organization that's growing fairly significantly now because it has a broad appeal. And then they have a wonderful website with good information, which I might as well remind people what that is. www.tlcminnesota, all one word. And on my computer it works better with all lowercase. tlcminnesota.org. And they have a lot of great information, and they are supporting the bill that would save our transit system here. People need to get involved. They need to take a moment and send an email or write a letter to their state legislators, if their state House representative and their state senator, right now, to support good transit funding. There is an excellent bill I've been telling everybody in both House and Senate. It's called Transportation Choices 2020, and it would dedicate a half-cent sales tax to support the transit system, which is what they do in Denver and St. Louis, Missouri, and many other cities in the U.S. The legislators need to hear from people. Otherwise, they assume it's not a big issue, but it is a big issue, especially when people start to realize without good funding, they won't have their service anymore.